Ghost, 1990, remains one of the most iconic romantic films of all time. A moving blend of love, loss, and the supernatural that touched audiences around the world. With unforgettable performances and a hauntingly emotional story, it became a cultural phenomenon. But while the film lives on in our hearts, some of the talented actors who brought its characters to life have sadly passed away, leaving behind stories marked by tragedy, illness, and quiet struggles. In this video, we take a closer look at the cast of Ghost, honoring their unforgettable roles while revealing the heartbreaking realities behind their final days. Their legacy endures, but their endings were far more tragic than the film's magical love story. Patrick Swayze, born August 18, 1952, portrayed Sam Wheat in Ghost in 1990 at the age of 38. As the murdered banker whose spirit fights to protect his love from beyond the grave, Sam Wheat became a cinematic icon, fierce, romantic, and achingly vulnerable. But Swayze's real life was far more tormented than any role he played. Born to a brutal perfectionist mother who ran a dance studio like a military camp, Patrick endured constant emotional pressure and was often humiliated in front of students. His sensitive nature clashed with the macho world around him, forcing him to mask his insecurities behind choreographed grace. Though he rose to stardom with Dirty Dancing and Roadhouse, his demons chased him throughout. He battled severe alcoholism, checking into rehab multiple times, and had notorious fights with directors due to his obsessive need for control. One of his darkest career lows came after Tu Wong Fu, a film he hoped would earn him critical respect. Instead, it triggered backlash from conservative fans and executives who quietly blacklisted him from A-list projects for years. Behind closed doors, his marriage to Lisa Niemi, publicly painted as perfect, was marked by long periods of separation, emotional withdrawal, and rumored affairs. He was also known to disappear for weeks during drinking binges, once nearly being arrested after a drunken public outburst in New Mexico. Despite a brief sobriety in the early 2000s, he returned to heavy smoking, reportedly 60 cigarettes a day, refusing to quit even after being diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in 2008. He worked while undergoing chemo, filming The Beast in Agony, refusing pain meds that dulled his instincts. Swayze died on September 14, 2009, in Los Angeles, age 57. His estate, estimated at $40 million, included multiple properties, a New Mexico ranch, and residuals from film and television. Yet in private letters later leaked, he expressed sadness over being remembered more for Ghost than his more daring work, feeling Hollywood had romanticized my ghost and ignored my fight. Phil Leeds was born on April 6, 1916, and played the emergency room ghost in Ghost in 1990 at the age of 74. With his hunched posture, bug-eyed intensity, and gravelly voice, Leeds made a minor role unforgettable. His blunt delivery and ghostly wisdom brought both humor and pathos to Sam's spectral journey. Audiences loved him instantly, but few knew that the quirky charm was born from a lifetime of hardship and secrets. Leeds came from a family of poor Jewish immigrants in New York City, scraping by on street peddling and hope. As a boy, he hawked newspapers and shined shoes, but harbored a deep shame about his impoverished background. He discovered acting in the Army during World War II and made it to Broadway. But his early film career was derailed when he was blacklisted during the McCarthy era. Officially, it was for alleged communist sympathies, but privately, studio insiders whispered it was due to a feud with a powerful agent he refused to bribe. For over a decade, he vanished from the screen, surviving off odd jobs, including washing dishes at the Copacabana, while sneaking into acting classes at night. When the blacklist lifted, he clawed his way back with memorable roles in Rosemary's Baby, Ally McBeal, and numerous sitcoms. But Leeds was never a saint. He was known for lashing out at young actors who missed lines, often belittling them on set. His quick wit masked a chronic fear of irrelevance, and he became obsessively controlling about his wardrobe, demanding custom-made clothes even for minor roles. His marriage to actress Frances Leeds was quietly strained. She filed for divorce in 1980, but later retracted the papers, and they lived apart for most of the decade. Leeds also suffered a minor stroke in 1989, just before filming Ghost, which left him partially deaf, though he hid this fact to avoid losing the role. He continued working until the very end, determined to leave behind a complete filmography. Phil Leeds died on August 16, 1998, in Los Angeles at age 82, from pneumonia. His net worth was modest, estimated under $500,000, consisting mainly of SAG pensions and a rent-controlled apartment he owned since 1964. Rick Avels was born on October 14, 1952, and portrayed Willie Lopez in Ghost in 1990 at the age of 38. As the twitchy, streetwise thug who murders Sam Wheat, Avels gave the film its terrifying jolt of realism. His erratic energy made Willie more than a cliché. He was unpredictable, dangerous, and unforgettable. But behind that fierce screen presence was a man spiraling under the weight of his own demons. Raised in the gritty Bronx by a single mother who worked 3 jobs, Rick grew up surrounded by violence, poverty, and a family legacy of addiction. Bullied for his appearance and his stutter, he learned to survive through dark humor and tougher fists. He broke into comedy in the early 80s, rising quickly thanks to his unfiltered style and unshakable charisma. But with fame came temptation. Avels developed a heroin habit while touring the comedy club circuit, a secret he masked with oversized sunglasses and rehearsed laughter. Hollywood noticed him after Ghost, but rather than catapulting him into stardom, the role became his peak. He lost key auditions for lead roles in New Jack City and Carlito's Way, due to erratic behavior and whispers about his drug use. Rumors swirled that he stole from a set in 1992 to feed his habit, a charge never proven, but enough to blackball him from major studios. His personal life was equally chaotic. He had multiple relationships, including a volatile long-term one, with a fellow stand-up comic who later accused him of emotional abuse. Friends reported that Avels often disappeared for weeks, surfacing only when he needed money or a detox. In 1993, he was diagnosed with HIV, believed to be contracted through needle use. By then, his weight had dropped dramatically, and he struggled to find work, often crashing on friends' couches in East LA. Rick Avels died on March 17, 1995, at the age of 42 in Los Angeles, from an AIDS-related pulmonary embolism. He died broke, with a net worth under $300,000, mostly in unpaid royalties and debt. Though his time in the spotlight was brief, his portrayal of Willie Lopez remains a haunting reminder of a man consumed by both his role and the reality he could never escape. Vincent Schiavelli was born on November 11, 1948, and portrayed the explosive subway ghost in Ghost in 1990 at the age of 42. His performance, marked by twitchy gestures and seething rage, left a lasting impression on audiences despite limited screen time. The tormented spirit he played, unhinged, furious, yet deeply pained, felt hauntingly authentic because it wasn't just a character. Schiavelli was raised in a poor Sicilian-American household in Brooklyn, often mocked for his towering frame, distorted facial features, and reclusive nature due to Marfan syndrome. He spent most of his youth as an outsider, bullied mercilessly and nicknamed Monster by classmates. That trauma bled into his performances, giving him a raw emotional edge. His Hollywood journey was paved with both acclaim and rejection. Known for roles in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and Amadeus, he was also quietly pushed out of big-budget projects for being too weird-looking, according to one leaked casting memo from a major studio. He developed a reputation as difficult, not for arrogance but for confronting directors he felt were disrespectful to character actors. In the early 90s, he was embroiled in a quiet legal battle with a producer who accused him of sabotage on set, an incident never widely reported. His marriage to actress Alice Beasley crumbled in 2001, reportedly due to Schiavelli's deepening depression and obsession with death, which he explored in a never-published memoir filled with graphic accounts of Hollywood's cruelty. After his divorce, he retreated to a tiny Sicilian village, living in semi-isolation while battling lung cancer. He died on December 26, 2005, in Polizzi Generosa, at the age of 57. His estate consisted of a small home in Sicily, scattered royalties and manuscripts, with a net worth estimated under $1 million. Vincent Schiavelli was a man who wore his pain like a second skin, channeling it into performances that were unforgettable. Yet he left this world largely forgotten, a ghost of the Hollywood machine he never truly trusted. Armelia McQueen, born January 6, 1952, played the role of Oda Mae's sister in Ghost in 1990 at the age of 38. Though a supporting role, her performance lit up every scene with sass, warmth, and impeccable timing. She was the fire behind the comic tension, complementing Whoopi Goldberg's chaotic energy with grounded hilarity. But the effervescent persona she portrayed masked a reality riddled with hardship, rejection, and an internal war she never aired publicly. Born in Southern Pines, North Carolina, Armelia grew up in a deeply segregated South, raised by a single mother who worked 3 jobs. She was mocked for her appearance, weight, and voice, and learned early on to hide pain behind a forced smile. Broadway welcomed her with Ain't Misbehavin', but backstage she often faced racial stereotyping, underpayment, and overt dismissal by white producers who saw her as replaceable. Though publicly apolitical in the early days, privately she battled depression, often worsened by the industry's double standards. In the early 2000s, she was nearly cast in a major network series before being dropped last minute for not fitting the visual tone. The rejection devastated her, and she never fully bounced back. Rumors of backstage confrontations, brief drinking problems, and suspected pill use during the 1990s were whispered among colleagues, though never confirmed. She never married, though she had a tumultuous long-term relationship with a closeted musician that ended in betrayal and public humiliation. In her later years, Armelia quietly suffered the deaths of several close friends and battled health issues in silence, refusing to reveal the nature of her final illness. She died on October 3, 2020, at 68, alone and far from the spotlight. Her modest estate, estimated under $500,000, consisted of a rented apartment in Los Angeles, residual checks from old TV appearances, and a cluttered collection of scripts she once hoped to produce. Hollywood remembered her with warmth, but forgot how cruelly it had treated her brilliance. Alma Beltron, born August 22, 1919, portrayed the woman ghost in Ghost, 1990, at the age of 71. Though her screen time was fleeting, her haunting presence in the subway scene etched a mysterious and deeply human layer into the film's exploration of the afterlife. But behind the spectral calm she projected on screen lay a life full of buried silence. Born in Cananea, Mexico, to a single mother who worked as a laundress for mine workers, Alma's early years were marked by hunger and humiliation. Her family was forced to emigrate illegally to the U.S., where she faced constant racial slurs and threats of deportation. She masked her trauma with charm and music, singing in border town bars before catching the eye of Xavier Cugat. While she rose through Hollywood playing the exotic Latina, she bitterly resented being typecast, once walking off a set after being asked to wear a stereotypical sombrero and fake accent. Industry whispers circulated about her temper, with directors labeling her difficult, and she was allegedly blacklisted from 2 major studios in the 60s for rejecting sexual advances from producers. Her biggest heartbreak came when her lead role in a proposed Telemundo series about a strong Latina matriarch was scrapped due to market limitations, a coded phrase for white advertisers' reluctance. Alma's private life was quiet, but not without pain. She had 1 son from a brief affair with a married studio executive, whom she raised alone. In later years, she suffered multiple strokes and withdrew from public life, leaving behind a fading echo of resistance. Alma died of natural causes on June 9, 2007, at 87 in Northridge, California. She left a modest estate, including a 2-bedroom home, her grandmother's rosary, and a restaurant stake inherited by her granddaughter. Her estimated net worth at death was under $400,000, and though she never made headlines, her dignity challenged Hollywood's tokenism in ways rarely acknowledged. Angelina Estrada, born February 28, 1932, took on the role of Rosa Santiago in Ghost in 1990, age 58. Though her role was minor, her presence, warm, weary, and deeply human, offered a rare, grounded portrayal of Latin motherhood in a film dominated by supernatural spectacle. But Estrada's own life had no shortage of ghostly shadows. Born into a struggling Mexican-American family in East LA, she faced systemic racism from childhood, once barred from joining her school's drama club because Mexican girls didn't act. Her father died when she was 10, leaving her mother to raise 5 children in a one-room tenement. She fought tooth and nail for every role, constantly told she was too ethnic or not glamorous enough, often cast in stereotypical roles that she privately resented. The most painful episode of her career came when she was unceremoniously replaced in a major telenovela for refusing to lose weight, leading her to publicly accuse the producer of discrimination, a fight that blacklisted her from major Latino networks for nearly 5 years. Her personal life was marred by betrayal. Her husband abandoned her when her son, Bobby Shayer, future drummer of Bad Religion, was only 6. Estrada juggled single motherhood and auditions, sometimes taking janitorial work to pay rent. Though she kept a low public profile, private letters later revealed a long affair with a married director, which ended in scandal and heartbreak when he abruptly cut ties and cast a younger actress in Estrada's role. In her final years, she suffered from heart issues, and her acting work dried up. She died of heart failure on August 5, 2005, in Las Vegas at age 73, in a modest apartment surrounded by old VHS tapes of her forgotten roles. Her net worth was under $300,000, including some savings, furniture, and personal memorabilia. Estrada's life was a quiet war against erasure, a woman who gave Hollywood her soul, and in return, was barely remembered. Vivian Banell, born May 23, 1924, played Orticia in Ghost, 1990, at age 66. A minor role, yet one that exuded defiant energy and mystique, much like Banell herself. Born in Antigua, she grew up in a rigid Anglican household where corporal punishment was routine and affection was rationed. Determined to escape, she rebranded herself in the 1950s as Enid Mosier, a sultry calypso singer who seduced nightclubs with her voice, and scandalized colonial elites by performing barefoot and unchaperoned. Her transition to Hollywood was rocky. Casting directors were fascinated by her exoticism, but hesitant to give her meaningful roles, relegating her to a parade of maids, voodoo women, and comedic foils. She resented the industry's racism deeply and once stormed out of a casting session after being asked to speak more like a slave. Her reputation as outspoken and volatile cost her multiple contracts. The most crushing blow of her career came in 1979 when a network sitcom she was attached to was abruptly canceled during pre-production after the executive producer allegedly said, "We can't have a black woman this loud leading a show." Her marriage to actor Austin Stoker was long but complicated. Insiders described frequent separations and fiery public arguments. She never had children and reportedly disinherited distant relatives who tried to exploit her financially in her final years. As diabetes ravaged her health, Banell refused help, living alone and rejecting calls from the few industry friends who remained. She died on November 18, 2003 at 79 in Los Angeles. Her modest estate included costume jewelry, decades of theatrical journals, and a small pension. Her net worth at the time of her death was under $500,000. Though her name rarely makes retrospectives, Banell's refusal to be silenced remains her boldest legacy. William Court, born July 8, 1936, appeared as the bank co-worker in Ghost, 1990, at age 54. A blink and you miss it role, but one that grounded the supernatural love story in a believable corporate world. Behind his modest screen time was a career built on consistency rather than celebrity. Known professionally as Bill Court, he embodied the working actor archetype in Hollywood. Dependable, understated, and often overlooked. Raised in conservative El Paso during the Dust Bowl's economic tale, Court's early life was marred by instability. His father abandoned the family and young William was forced into work by age 14 to help support his single mother. Acting was an escape, but also a burden. He was told repeatedly that his look was too plain for leading roles. While he landed dozens of parts in iconic TV shows like The Golden Girls, Quantum Leap, and The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, he was rarely allowed to break out of background roles. Industry insiders noted that Court had a perfectionist streak and refused to play the Hollywood game, turning down roles he found shallow, which some believe stalled his career. In the late 80s, he quietly feuded with a casting director after being replaced without explanation, and he never fully recovered from the blacklisting that followed. Friends described him as kind but emotionally distant, a man haunted by the fame that always eluded him. He was married once, briefly, but reportedly struggled with intimacy and remained single for most of his life. Diagnosed with cancer in the early 90s, he continued working until his health collapsed. William Court died on September 23, 1993, in Los Angeles at age 57. His estate, including a small bungalow in Burbank and minor residuals, was estimated under $500,000. His name faded into Hollywood's margins, but for those who worked beside him, he remained a symbol of integrity in an industry that rarely rewarded it. Charlotte Zucker, born March 10, 1921, stepped into the role of the bank officer in Ghost, 1990 at age 69, delivering a fleeting but unforgettable moment of dry humor amidst the film's emotional storm. Her real power, though, lay not in screen time, but in lineage. She was the matriarch of a comedy empire, mother to David and Jerry Zucker, who would redefine absurdist film. But Zucker herself had a life that defied the neat narrative of a Hollywood mom. Born in Milwaukee during the Depression, she survived poverty, a domineering mother, and a marriage arranged more for stability than love. She taught drama in obscurity for decades before her sons discovered her talent and cast her in Airplane in 1980. Behind the laughs, however, was a woman quietly battling disappointment. She longed for a lead role that never came and confided to friends that she sometimes felt like a punchline in my own son's joke. While her family adored her publicly, industry friends suggested there was tension. Charlotte reportedly clashed with David over creative decisions and once threatened to walk off set during The Naked Gun 2, 1-2 over a line she called cheap. Despite that, she remained a presence in their productions, her timing impeccable, her spirit unshakable. Off-set, she cared for her ailing husband, burdened by medical bills that drained much of her modest savings. Her final years were marked by health battles, including a brutal cancer diagnosis that she kept largely private. Charlotte Zucker died on September 5, 2007 in Shorewood, Wisconsin, at the age of 86. Her estate was small, valued under $500,000, composed mostly of real estate and minor royalties. Yet her legacy, though overlooked by critics, lives on in every one-liner and every lovingly cast cameo. She was the hidden heartbeat of a comedic dynasty, a woman who laughed not for fame, but to survive. Tony Goldwin, born May 20th, 1960, played Carl Brunner in Ghost, 1990 at the age of 30, a role that launched him into the mainstream as the charming traitor whose greed leads to murder. Carl was every man on the surface, snake beneath, a complexity Goldwin portrayed with unnerving nuance. Off-screen, Tony was born into immense privilege, the grandson of legendary producer Samuel Goldwyn and son of Oscar-winning producer Samuel Goldwyn Jr. But privilege came with pressure and secrets. In an explosive interview, Goldwyn admitted to a disturbing early relationship with his mother's friend when he was just 15, calling it complicated but consensual, an admission that many viewed as a veiled cry for help rather than boast. His upbringing, while wealthy, was reportedly emotionally cold. Tony sought attention through rebellion, including early drug use and repeated expulsions from elite prep schools. Though he avoided major scandal in adulthood, colleagues describe him as relentlessly intense, often clashing with directors when he felt control slipping. His greatest career regret, he once said, was turning down a leading role in The Silence of the Lambs, a mistake that haunted him for years. He eventually carved a respected niche in television and theater, most notably as President Fitzgerald Grant in Scandal. He married production designer Jane Muskie and fathered 2 daughters but has kept family life fiercely private. perhaps a reaction to his youth in a house where emotions were weaponized. Despite his pedigree, Goldwin built his wealth steadily rather than explosively. As of recent estimates, his net worth stands between $6 to $8 million, supported by producing credits, directing gigs, and a consistent presence on prestige TV. Beneath the polished exterior remains a man shaped by early exposure to power, vulnerability, and the ever-present risk of being consumed by his own ambition. In 2025, he is 65 years old. Thank you for watching as we reflected on the lives and legacies of the actors from Ghost who are no longer with us. Their humor, charm, and unforgettable performances brought joy to millions and helped shape the show into a classic. While their journeys ended far too soon, their impact lives on through every scene, every laugh, and every memory they've left behind. As we honor their lives, we're reminded of how deeply television can touch our hearts. Join us next time as we look back at more stars who left us too soon, but whose stories continue to shine.